Now, did you know that if you've got a conveyor, you need to track it? Very similar to your car tracking tyres, you need to track a conveyor belt. Now, when you have a new conveyor belt put on, or sometimes there's things where you need to keep an eye to make sure that the belt is running in the centre of the conveyor chassis. So if you see this conveyor as it is now, this is tracked correctly. We've got the same distance from the edge of the belt to the chassis there, and we've got the same distance there. So the belt is not rubbing hard up against the chassis. And if we check the other end will be the same. So this at the minute is set perfectly, but I'm going to show you how you can get it wrong. Now, most conveyors are tensioned from the tail drum. This is the tail drum, that's the head drum. So what we do is we move the tail drum backwards to tension the belt. But in doing that, we also affect the tracking. So we've got these adjusters here, which push this threaded rod and the roller down to tension the belt, and we also use that for tracking. Now, a lot of conveyors, including our own, we also have adjustment on the head drum because sometimes we need to adjust both ends. Now, the best way I can describe what's going on with a conveyor belt and how you should track it, because people get confused about this, is with an elastic band. If you imagine that elastic band being a conveyor belt and my fingers being the head drum and the tail drum, you think you want to guide that conveyor belt to the middle of the conveyor chassis. So if I show you it in an extreme example, what happens if you adjust the tail drum, put some tension on it. So as you can see, the tail drum is now doing that. Now, we generally set this by measurement and generally it's okay, but we've still got that adjustment there just in case we need to tweak it. Now, most of the adjustment is done on the tail drum end, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to adjust it to show you how it can be affected by changing the settings on the tail drum. Now, as you can see, I'm going to leave that nut where it is so I can come back to that in a bit, but as you can see, I've adjusted it off that much. We're now going to start the conveyor and we're going to see what happens. Now, conveyor belts, depending on the speed, need a second or two to move from any adjustment you've done. So if you make adjustments and then you look and nothing's happened, just be patient, because depending on, you imagine if you've got a really slow moving conveyor, it could take hours for it to settle and end up where you've adjusted it. This is a relatively short conveyor and it's a relatively fast moving conveyor. So I'd like to think any adjustments I've made will translate into a reaction fairly quick. The conveyor belt has closed the gap just there, but this side, there's quite a bit of space. So the conveyor belt is now moving across this way because I've took the tension off this side of the conveyor belt. If you also look under here, you can see the conveyor belt is sagged down this side. So it's under tensioned this side compared to this side, which makes sense because I've actually moved the tail drum on that side this way. So the belt is now moving across and it's taking its easiest path over to one side. So when you're tracking belts, you're looking at both sides, at both ends of the conveyor, and you're trying to get it right. You might find that the tail drum is running dead center, but at the head drum, you're hard across one side. And it doesn't matter what you do, you can't seem to get the head drum in the center. That's what you've got the adjustment here for. You want to set your head drum on measurements where you think it's right, and you want to try and track the conveyor from the tail drum end to try and get it equal both ends. If you can't achieve that by adjusting the tail drum, then you are going to have to look at adjusting the head drum accordingly, and by doing so you might then upset the tail drum. So you'll see you've got to adjust something over here and you might have to readjust something over there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put that conveyor back where it was, because remember I've left that lock nut in the right place. I'm going to tension it back up and I'm going to run it, and we're going to make sure it comes back across, because this is a brand new machine and I don't want to scuff the paint with the belt dragging down the sides. You'll also see that the tension in the belt is fairly even coming across. So you've got two indicators of what you really need to do with your belt. You need to look under your belt and see what sort of tension you've got side to side. And also you need to see how tight the ends of the belt is, the edges of the belt are on the ends of the rollers, top and bottom, head and tail drums.